ॐ गुरुरेव घति गुरुमेव भजे गुरुनैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे न गुरुः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरुः मतिरस्ति गुरो मम पाहि गुरो सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेदमभेदकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकादराजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेतः। सर्वेभ्यः नमस्कारः. We are saying Srimad Bhagavada Purana, and we are towards the end of Canto 7 in the Srimad Bhagavada Purana. In the last video, we saw that Sage Narada explaining to King Yudhishthira about the dharmas of the varnas, different varnas and different ashramas. And in this chapter, that is in chapter 14 of Canto 7, Sri Narada, that is Sage Narada, he explains to King Yudhishthira about the dharma of the Grahastashrama, Grahastha life. What is Grahastha life? That is, Grahastha life is involving in the worldly activities, in the family matters, as well as upholding dharma. When we experience or enjoy artha and kama, that is wealth and desires, with dharma, following dharma, then it will naturally lead a person to moksha. So, Grahastha life or the family life is experiencing all the worldly life, family life, all the wealth, strictly following dharma, then it will naturally lead a person to moksha, that is liberation. In the family life, bhakti culture is very famous. So one should have complete devotion towards Bhagavan, completely surrendered to Bhagavan. Whatever he experienced in this worldly life or in the family life, one must consider it as the gift given to him by Bhagavan or the result of the prarabdha karma. So one must experience the positives as well as the negatives without any complaint or without any pride. One can experience or use or enjoy anything, provided it must be completely within the limits of dharma, as well as one must consider all that as the gift of Bhagavan and should not take that own responsibility like, yes, I own this, I have this. Not like that, but as the gift of Bhagavan, completely surrendering all the action to Bhagavan, that is following the karma yoga, then it will naturally lead a person to moksha. Because the family life is to exhaust one's prarabdha karma. Even all the other ashramas are also like that. The sannyasa ashrama and everything are like that. But all that are completely devoted to moksha. But here in the family life also can be experienced because this world is for the human beings. It is not only for the sannyasis or for the yogis or the jnanis. It is also for common man. So the common man or the person who experiences Grahastha life, they can experience all that they have, provided within the limits of Dharma, and complete devotion towards Bhagavan, surrendering all the activities to Bhagavan, then it will naturally lead a person to moksha or liberation, because all cannot go to the forest, or all cannot take sannyasa or vanaprasthal way of life or the brahmachari way of life. Definitely, this world needs someone to follow their own rules and regulations, isn't it? So, Grahastha life is for that. And Sage Narada says that Griheshvavasthito Rajan Kriya Kurvan Gruhochitaha Vasudevarpanam Sakshat Upasita Mahamunin. So one must do all the duties, that can be the worldly duties or the family life, everything, as an offering to Vasudeva, and do service to holy men, so that it will naturally lead a person to moksha. And once when a person feels, that is when he becomes old, or when he feels that enough of family life, one must have that contentment also. When they feel that enough of family life, I have done all the major duties, I have completed all the major duties, like giving proper education to the children, or taking care of the family in any other way, or when they feel that they have completed their duties in family life, then they must develop an interest towards Bhagavan, hear his Leela avatars, connect with holy men, always read the scriptures, worshipping Bhagavan. So now they have a lot of time to divert their attention. So they must completely worship Bhagavan in all ways, try to distance from the family and the worldly life, and gradually try to disidentify with the body and mind and connect with Atma. For this, one need not necessarily or should go to forest or take Vanaprastha way of life. That is, if they are interested, they can do, but it is not mandatory. Even in the house, one can worship Bhagavan, spend some time with the holy men, always think of Bhagavan by reading the scriptures or listening to his Leelas, and gradually develop detachment or disidentify with the body, mind, and the worldly life. So that must be considered. And in the Grahastha life, that is in the family life, each person, the householder, must perform the Pancha Mahayajnas. Pancha Mahayajnas is worshipping the Devas, worshipping the rishis, worshipping the pitars, worshipping fellow men, and worshipping the other creatures. So why this Pancha Mahayajna is important? Because the supreme being is worshipped in these five levels, in these five categories. That is, the supreme being is worshipped as the devas by performing the Vedic rituals. The supreme being is worshipped as the pitars by doing shraddha karmas. The supreme being is worshipped as the rishis by reading their scriptures and trying to understand their scriptures. The supreme being is worshipped as a fellow man, because Bhagavan exists in everyone. So the fellow man should be respected and treated well. And the supreme being is worshipped as the other beings, like the other creatures, like, or any other animals or insects, like that. So this Pancha Mahayajna, it must be performed by a Grahastha householder. This is very important, because in the other ashramas, like the sannyasa ashrama or the vanaprastha ashrama or the avaduta way of life, the all-pervading Bhagavan is worshipped. Bhagavan is worshipped with an attitude that he pervades everywhere. But when we involved in the family life, or when we involved in the worldly matters, that attitude will not be prominent. So to bring that attitude in our mind, to activate that feeling in us, we have to perform this Pancha Mahayajna. And Sage Narada says that Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu Martyadeshu Yadarhatah Taistai Kamai Yajasvainam Kshetrajnam Brahmananano. Bhagavan indwells in everything and he should be worshipped in all these ways. That is from the devas down to the any other creatures. One must have this in mind. And all this way in the Vedic scriptures or the scriptures written by the great rishis are read, understood, chanted. So like that, the rishis are worshipped. By the devas are worshipped by performing the Vedic rituals, and the Pitars are worshipped by giving Shraddha karmas, doing Shraddha karmas, and the fellow men are respected and treated well. When a guest come in our house, they should not be treated as an extra person, extraterrestrial being, but should be respected well. And the other beings, that is the other beings like even the small insects like the ants or the small insects, the grahastha must feed them. It is the duty of the grahastha to feed it. And the next important quality the grahastha must follow is charity. That is, Bhagavan has given us something. So it is our duty to share it with others. The charity is very important for a grahastha way of life. And after explaining this, the sage Narada tells about the holy places on earth. Wherever a person worships Bhagavan, wherever the mantras are chanted, wherever his holy image is worshipped, wherever the scriptures are read. So all these places are considered as holy on this earth. Apart from it, there are many rivers like Ganga, Tamirabarni, then Kaveri, Alakananda. So such rivers are considered as holy places. Then apart from it, the pilgrimage spots like Kurukshetra, Gaya, then Grahastashrama, Prayaga, Naimisharanya forest, Falguna, Sri Ramasetu, then Rameshwaram, Prabhasatirtha, Varanasi, Mathura, Lake Pampa, Bindu Saras, Badrikashrama, banks of river Alagananda, Chitraketu, where Sri Rama and Sita Devi stayed, Panchavati, and then mountains like great mountains like Himalaya, Malaya Mountains, Mahendragiri. So all these places are considered as divine. When we do any spiritual practice in it, when we do tapas in it, or when we do any puja or any rites, then it will give thousandfold effect. If we do the Shraddha karmas in the Rameshwaram, that is in the Sri Ramasetu there, then it will give multiple effects for the performer of the rites as well as for his family. Because once Bhagavan Sri Rama worshipped Bhagavan Shiva there, Danishkoti. So all these are very divine places. Without doing any karmas or anything, just when we sit there and meditate, it will give you a lot of effect and we feel that presence of Bhagavan there. So such places are considered as very powerful spiritual places. One can practice any spiritual practice there. So it will give multiple effects. This world itself this Brahmanda itself is like a tree. And all the different creatures are just like the branches and the leaves out of it. And Bhagavan is that root. Bhagavan Vasudeva is the root of that tree. If we want the tree to grow, we will just water the roots, isn't it? We do not water all the leaves and branches and fruits and all. We just water the root and the tree will automatically grow. So just like that, if we worship Bhagavan Vasudeva, then it will go to this entire Brahmanda. If we worship Bhagavan Vasudeva, it is like worshipping this entire universe. So worshipping Bhagavan is considered so sacred, says Sage Narada to King Yudhishthira. Puranyanena srishtani rudhirya grishi devataha Shete jivena rupena pureshu purusho hyasam. After creating all the animals and all the other creatures, men, everything, Bhagavan, he entered in all these beings. He resides in all bodies as the indwelling self, and he is that jiva. Since he resides in this body, he is called the Purusha. So Bhagavan resides in all the beings. He is all pervaded. So if we worship Bhagavan Vasudeva, it is like worshipping this entire universe, says Sage Narada. And Sage Narada says that among all these different creatures in this world, only man has that capacity to realize his presence in himself as well as in the entire universe. That is the main speciality of the human birth. But unfortunately, people are not able to realize it because of their nature, their gunas, their attitude. In the initial time period, that is in the Krita Yuga or the Satya Yuga, people used to worship their own Atma. They do not have any image worship or temples or anything. They just don't even go to the tirtha or any banks of river Ganga and all. They just sit in home, worship that Atma. He is indwelling in me. That Bhagavan they will worship. But gradually, when the time rolled on, people began to feel the difference between themselves and others. And when they felt the difference, they were very easily able to point out the defects of others. So the gap widened more. So each one considered themselves alone as the individual and others are exterior to it. So in that sense, we cannot worship the all-pervading Bhagavan. If the Bhagavan is to be worshipped as our inner self, then we must not see difference among the creatures or any other beings or even the whole men. But now that division has widened a lot. So no more can that form of worship can be proceeded like this. The sages thought like this. This is not the practice in the recent time alone. It is there in the ancient time itself. Even when in the Treta Yuga, the people began to point out the defects and the negatives of others, and they felt that I am supreme than him. I must win. Like this, that thought was very common even in the Treta Yuga. So the sages, what they thought was, if this goes on like this, then the concept of Bhagavan itself will be erased from this world. So what they did was, they propagated the way of worshipping Bhagavan as images, as the form. At least in that way, they can remember the concept of God. So the different Leela avatars are remembered, and in that way, the form or image of Bhagavan is worshipped. And in other ways, as the Trimurtis, as the other Devatas, they all are worshipped in the way of worshipping the form. But initially, all this was worshipped as the self, the indwelling self. When we worship the indwelling self, then we worship the entire universe. But that concept was slowly erased from the mind of the people. So they propagated, the rishis, they propagated this form of worship and everyone followed it. When the Dwapara Yuga came, this became more famous and the people began to build temples for that images and all. And now in the Kali Yuga, it is more worse. We worship Bhagavan inside the temple, come out and fight. So, what is the value that we are worshipping that Bhagavan in us? So, that should be revived, says Sage Narada. And for that, one must find peace in himself. Only when one is happy, then he can be happy in the external world, or he will not see any difference. We can experience it sometimes when we are so happy. Then even if others shout at us, we don't feel so bad. But when we are so in a depressed mood, then even when the other tell us, point our mistake for our good, then we feel so bad. So one must find peace in oneself, then only he can find happiness and peace in the outside world. And Sage Narada says that grief and infatuation ought to be overcome by the discrimination between the Atma and Anatma. Pride can be overcome by association with the holy men. Obstacles in concentration and meditation can be overcome by practicing silence. Only then we can understand that Bhagavan is in us. Then the violent nature can be controlled by controlling attachment towards the external world. Painful experiences from other creatures, that is, someone has hurt us, someone has treated us badly, all this can be overcome by showing kindness to other beings, that is, towards them. Pain of the past karmas can be overcome by worshipping Bhagavan, devotion. Pain from body can be overcome by doing pranayama and practicing chanting of Om. And sleep can be overcome by sattvika food, because when we sit for meditation, some people just drowse off. So that can be overcome by taking sattvika food. Rajas and tamas can be overcome by following sattvic nature, and sattvika nature can be overcome by seeing discrimination, by practicing discrimination between the Atma and Anatma. So all these are the common practices one sincere aspirant of Bhagavan should follow. An aspirant must practice pranayama and chant Omkara. And it is not necessarily that all the householder in the young age or in the old age need to take sannyasa. It is not necessary or mandatory. One can sit in the house itself and practice all this, but gradually he must detach himself from the world, from the family, and identification with the body. He must come over it and identify with Atma. And after explaining all this, the sage Narada explained Advaita philosophy to King Yudhishthira. And Sage Narada said that if one cannot practice Advaita philosophy, because Advaita philosophy is a little bit difficult, then one can follow any guru, or even if that is not possible, one can completely surrender oneself to Bhagavan, dedicating all the actions to Bhagavan. Whatever I do, Krishna Arpanam. Whatever I eat, Narayanarpanam. Whatever I do in the family life, Narayanarpanam or Krishnarpanam. So just dedicate everything to Bhagavan, surrender, complete surrender to Bhagavan. Then one will gradually attain moksha, says Sage Narada. And after explaining all this, Sage Narada said to King Yudhishthira that, Yudhishthira, you are a very lucky. You are born in a family where Bhagavan Sri Krishna has taken birth, that Narayana itself has been born as Bhagavan Krishna in your family. And apart from it, many sages, they come and visit your family and your family members. So you are so lucky in so many ways. Seeing one holy person itself is very difficult. But in your house, they are just coming everywhere. They are, all the sages are flocking to your family and your house. So you are lucky in that way. So practice after completing all your duties. If you feel that you have completed all your duties, then leave this everything, this worldly life, and practice the feeling and practice to realize Bhagavan in oneself. Like this Sage Narada said, and he went off from that place to his abode. And after telling all this, Bhagavan Krishna also, who was also present there in that Rajasuya Yajna, blessed King Yudhishthira and other family members of King Yudhishthira. So with this ends Canto 7 of Srimad Bhagavada Purana. This canto was very important because it said about the Prahlada. Prahlada's story came in this canto only. Actually, this canto began with Hiranyakashipu giving advice, that is Atma Vidya, to his brother's family, that is Hiranyaksha's wife and children, and to Mother Didi. And after giving that Atma advice, he said that everyone is Atma. So if the body is gone, don't worry. Like this, he said, because Hiranyakashipu has this knowledge because once he was the attendant of Bhagavan Vishnu. So all that knowledge was there in his mind. But he went to do tapas. He performed Ghora tapas, attained vara from Lord Brahma that no one can heal him in any way, and he ruled over the three worlds for such a long time. And at last, he persecuted his own son Prahlada. He wanted to kill his own son Prahlada, and he tried many ways to kill him. So this cannot be digested by Bhagavan because he is Narayana who is there to protect everyone. And so he, Bhagavan Sri Hari, he emerged from the pillar of the assembly of Hiranyakashipu as Bhagavan Nrsimha, and he killed Hiranyakashipu. And after killing Hiranyakashipu and all the Asuras following them, Bhagavan he did not become calm. At last, Prahlada worshipped Bhagavan, and Nrsimhamurti became calm, and he gave boon to Prahlada that he will rule this Asuras for one mantra. And after that, Sage Narada said about the dharmas of the different varnas and different ashramas. So with this concludes the Canto 7 of Srimad Bhagavada Purana. With the grace of Bhagavan Srimad Narayana, I was able to complete the 7 cantos in Srimad Bhagavada Purana. I will continue with the next canto in my next upload. Om Namo Narayana Khila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.